Hey, my name's Mr. Bentley, and I wasn't invited to Christmas this year. Not because I was sick, not because I was out of town, but because my daughter-in-law said I didn't matter anymore. They moved into the house I paid for, raised their kids in the rooms I built, then locked me out of the holidays, of the family, of the truth, and the lie they told to cover it all. That part still stings. But what I did next, that's what they never saw coming. The lights went up the day after Thanksgiving, same as every year. The houses on my street twinkled like Macy's window displays, and kids ran up and down the sidewalks with scarves too big for their necks. Carolers had already started rehearsing in the church lot across the street. I could hear the harmonies faintly from my porch. The air had that particular kind of bite to it, one that always told me the season was truly here. I used to love this time of year. Christmas meant something when Janice was still alive. She'd spend weeks planning the menu, wrapping presents in that sparkly green paper she liked, and humming along to the Temptations' Christmas album on repeat. After she passed, I tried to keep it going, for Darius mostly. My boy needed to know that tradition meant you show up, even when it hurts. I sat on the edge of my worn recliner, the boxes of decorations still untouched in the hallway closet. I kept telling myself I'd pull them out next weekend. But next weekend had come and gone twice. Truth is, I was waiting for a call, a text, anything from Darius. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to seem desperate. But in my heart, I was holding out hope. Then the phone rang. I smiled without thinking, already picturing Darius's voice on the other end. But it wasn't him. Kenitra, my daughter-in-law. "Hey, Mr. Bentley," she started. Polite, polished, the same voice she uses with bank tellers and conference calls. "I just wanted to let you know we're doing a small dinner this year. Just the kids and a few friends, super low-key." I blinked, confused. "Oh, all right. I didn't know y'all were keeping it small." She hesitated, then added, "Yeah, we just figured, you know, with things being tense sometimes when the past comes up, it's just easier this way. I don't mean to make things tense. Anyway, we'll drop off a plate," she cut in quickly. "Hope you have a good one, okay?" Click. That was it. I sat there holding the phone like it still had something to say. My mouth was dry. Not angry, just hollow. The kind of hollow that comes when you realize you've been left behind quietly, politely, like someone setting down a glass they no longer need. I checked the family group chat, pictures of the grandkids at their school plays, Kenitra asking who's bringing dessert, Darius replying with a joke about burning the turkey again. My name wasn't anywhere, no mention, no "Pop, you coming?" Not even a typo to pretend I'd been forgotten by mistake. They'd been planning it for weeks. I scrolled through old photos. Last year I was dressed as Santa, handing out gifts and carving the ham. 2 years ago, Darius and I were watching football laughing. That promise he made at Janice's funeral echoed in my ears. "You'll never be alone, Pop. I got you." Guess even promises can expire. I stood up, wandered over to the window. Across the street, the Turners were stringing lights, their youngest trying to climb a step ladder too tall for him. I could hear laughter inside their home. Mine was quiet. So quiet, it hurt. Maybe I was too hard on him, I muttered. Maybe I expected too much. I thought about driving over, just to wave, maybe bring some cookies for the kids. But I knew how that would look, like some lonely old man clinging to something already gone. Desperation wasn't my color. Never had been. Instead, I opened a bottle of apple cider, took it to the porch, sat there and watched the neighborhood come alive with joy that didn't need me. Inside, I stared at the fireplace mantel, dusty and bare. Then I opened the drawer beneath it. An old shoebox sat there, yellowed at the corners. I pulled out a card, crayon written in Darius's 6-year-old handwriting. "You're the best Santa ever, Daddy." I placed the card gently on the mantel, next to the box of ornaments I hadn't opened. The card's drawing showed our old house with a giant star on the roof. Janice had helped him with that, said it'd guide Santa home. It used to be magic. Now it just made my chest tighten. I sat down again, card in hand, rereading the words, not crying, just remembering. But what cut deepest wasn't being banned from dinner. It was realizing I'd paid for the house they'd be celebrating in. I woke up before the sun. Years of working the early shift on the railroad left my body tuned like clockwork. Even retired, even on Christmas morning. I sat up slow, bones creaking louder than the floorboards, reached for my glasses on the nightstand. I laid out the red plaid shirt Janice once called my holiday uniform. I buttoned it like muscle memory. No one would see it, but it felt wrong not to wear it. In the kitchen, I brewed coffee. The silence hit first. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes your ears ring. No giggles from the grandkids. No Kenitra shouting over the oven timer. No Darius tossing wrapping paper and laughing at his own terrible jokes. Just the sound of the coffee maker and the hum of a house holding its breath. By the door sat a bag of wrapped gifts. I'd picked them out weeks ago, down to the stocking stuffers. Each one labeled in my careful cursive, Zuri, Malik, Aiden. I stared at them, untouched, like they were mocking me now. I flipped on the TV. The Macy's parade was on, brass bands and dancing elves smiling at nobody. It made the house feel even emptier. The phone hadn't buzzed, not even a Merry Christmas pop. I sat back, phone in hand, and opened Facebook. It wasn't curiosity, it was instinct. That itch to see what the world was doing without you. First post was Kenitra, her smile wide. Darius in the background pouring mimosas. The house was full. Lights strung across the windows I paid for. A long table decked with food I wasn't invited to taste. The caption read, "Keeping the energy positive this year. No drama, just family." No drama, just family. I swiped through more. Pictures of the kids tearing open gifts. My cousin Reggie holding a plate of waffles. Even the neighbor down the block, the one who always asked me about my tomatoes, was there. Every single one of them. And not one had asked where I was. I leaned back in my chair, scrolling slower now. Trying to find one sign that maybe they missed me. Nothing. A private message popped up. "Hey, I thought you were out of town. Darius told us you were spending Christmas alone this year. Hope you're enjoying the break." I read it 3 times. Alone by choice. He told them that. I didn't reply. I just sat there, staring at the screen, breathing through my nose to keep from, I don't even know what, yelling, crying, laughing at how slick the lie was. I raised that boy to tell the truth, taught him a man's word had weight. Now he's out here painting me like some grumpy old loner who couldn't be bothered with family. Who taught him that? I stood up, pacing. My hands balled into fists, then released. I picked up the phone to call him, put it down, picked it up again. What was I even going to say? That I saw the photos, that I knew he lied, that he made me the villain in a story where I was the one who kept showing up. I went out back. The sky was clear. The old grill sat in the corner like a rusted trophy. Darius and I used to stand over that thing, ribs sizzling, sweat on our foreheads, beers in hand. He used to call me Grill Master B. I used to feel like a man who mattered. I thought about calling my sister, but she didn't need my problems ruining her morning. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. If they ever ask why I stopped coming around, I wrote, this is the page I'll hand them. The pen scratched deep. The words came fast, like I'd been bottling them for years. That night, the house was darker than it had ever been. I turned off every light but the one in the hallway. I walked to the closet, picked up the bag of untouched gifts, and brought them to the bedroom. One by one, I stacked them in the top drawer of my dresser. Then I opened the hallway closet, pulled out the plastic bin labeled Family Christmas. Ornaments, garlands, the wreath Janice had made out of pine cones. I took them all and climbed up to the attic. When I closed the lid on that box, I wasn't just storing decorations. I was storing the last piece of myself that still begged to be included. I whispered to myself, barely louder than a breath, just because they share your blood doesn't mean they get to drain your peace. And as I folded away the tinsel in silence, I knew the bill for their dream life was still landing on my porch. The morning after Christmas felt colder than usual, though the weather hadn't changed much. I sat on the porch, cradling a mug of lukewarm coffee. No reason to rush it. It wasn't like there was anywhere I had to be. Birds chirped, kids zipped by on new bikes. The world kept spinning just fine. I just sat there, letting time wash over me like rain on concrete. Mrs. Glinda from 2 doors down shuffled past with her scarf tight and her arms full of sale flyers. "Morning, Mr. Bentley," she called. "Didn't see you at Darius's yesterday. Kenitra said it was just close family, keeping it small. Figured you must have gone out of town again." Her words floated out like small talk, like she was mentioning the weather. But I didn't smile. I didn't even blink. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Guess so." She kept walking. Probably didn't think twice, but I did. I sat there another 5 minutes before going inside. I didn't slam the door, didn't mutter a word. I just moved, steady. Back to my study. Pulled open the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and took out the manila envelope I hadn't touched in 6 years. Inside, still crisp, was the wire transfer receipt, $97,000. I had printed it twice, just to be safe. I ran my finger along the numbers like I was trying to rub meaning back into them. 6 years ago, I was standing in this same house, but the air was full of panic and pleading. Darius and Kenitra had come over in tears. She was pregnant with Malik, their second child. They were 2 weeks from foreclosure. "Daddy, if we lose this house, we're done. We've tried everything," Darius had said. His voice had cracked like he was 12 again, not a grown man with a mortgage. I didn't hesitate. I just reached for my checkbook. "You'll pay it forward," I told them. "Just remember, keep family first. Always." They promised. Swore up and down I'd always have a seat in that home, that it was mine too, that what I'd done saved their family. And that same house was full of cousins, co-workers, neighbors, and not 1 square inch for the man who made it possible. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. The memory had a bitter shine now. Back then, they were all hugs and grateful tears. Kenitra even joked, "We'll save you a seat at the head of the table every holiday, Daddy B." And I believed her. That house was empty then. No furniture, just dreams echoing in blank rooms. I remember walking through the kitchen and picturing myself carving a turkey there, laughing with the kids, holding my grandbaby. Darius had hugged me outside the front door like a son should. Now I replayed that moment and heard it different. It wasn't a promise. It was a performance. And I'd bought a front row ticket with the biggest check of my life. I stood up slow. The floor creaked under my feet as I moved back toward the living room. That's when another memory hit. Smaller, but now louder in my head. 2 summers ago, they had a barbecue. I'd been looking forward to it, even had my potato salad ready. Then Darius called last minute. "Pop, Kenitra's folks are in town and we're tight on space this time. Next one, okay?" I'd shrugged it off, told him no problem. But now I remembered scrolling Facebook later and seeing the yard full of folding chairs packed with people. That wasn't an oversight. That was the start. Every next time, we're trying to keep it low key. Every excuse had been another branch trimmed off the family tree until my name barely hung on. It wasn't carelessness. It was pruning, intentional, quiet, clean. I turned and looked at my house. Old, yes, but mine. Every nail, every brick, every picture on the wall was chosen by my hands. No one could erase me here. "I helped build their life," I said aloud, but forgot to protect my place in it. I went back into the study, sat at the desk, and pulled a fresh sheet of paper from the drawer. At the top, I wrote, "Things I will no longer apologize for." Underneath, "Speaking truth, expecting reciprocity, valuing my presence. I added one more line, reminding them who made their comfort possible. Then I sealed the old mortgage documents in a fresh envelope and labeled it, "Receipts they forgot I kept." I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I wasn't just about to dust off old receipts. I was about to make sure they saw the total balance due. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that presses in on your ears. Not soft, not warm, just hollow. I didn't bother turning on the big light in the living room. One old lamp in the corner cast these long, thin shadows that moved when I shifted in my chair. I sat there, elbows on my knees, phone in hand. It buzzed again. Unknown number. Decline. Buzzed again. Blocked number. Decline. I wasn't in the mood for guessing games. If someone had something to say, they could say it with their name showing. Otherwise, let the call die. I opened the family group chat. Raiden, always the diplomat, had just dropped a Merry Christmas sticker. That was it. No words, no name, no check-in. Just a cartoon Santa dancing like everything was normal. I scrolled back through the thread, photos of brunch, kids in matching pajamas, people toasting mimosas, sitting at my old table, in the house I helped keep from foreclosure, faces tagged. Jokes tossed around. But me, not once. Not even a wish you were here emoji. The silence wasn't an accident. It was engineered. And that realization sat in my chest like a brick. Earlier that day, I'd tried calling Raiden's office. Got voicemail. No surprise. He always kept things professional when it came to family. Said it helped create healthy boundaries. Sounded more like a PR statement than something a son says. But what stuck in my mind wasn't the silence. It was the flash of a text I'd seen weeks ago on his phone, back when we were watching a game together. He turned his screen down quick, but I caught the top of the message. "Dad, Kenitra said don't stir trouble." That was the whole thing. Right there. Plain as day. I raised Raiden to speak up, to stand firm, even if it was uncomfortable. Now he was dancing around truth like it might set off alarms. I didn't text him. Didn't ask what that message meant. Didn't try to open the door he kept closing. Some silence is strategic. Patience, I reminded myself, can be louder than any confrontation. It was almost 7 when I heard the knock. Not loud, just enough to stir me from thought. I opened the door, and there she was. Amara, my granddaughter, standing on the steps in a pink coat and fuzzy boots. She didn't say anything at first, just looked up at me, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be there. I stepped aside. She walked in and sat on the couch like she remembered how it used to be. No phone in her hand, no distractions, just her. Then she looked at me and asked it, plain and raw. "Grandpa, do you not get hugs on Christmas?" I froze. You'd think I'd have something ready for that. A joke, a shrug, a deflection. But I just stared at her. My heart caught, like it skipped a step. I finally nodded. She looked down, hands twisting in her lap. She didn't ask anything else. Didn't need to. That question, that one sentence, hit deeper than any argument. Because it came from someone who didn't know how to hide the truth yet. When she left, the house felt even quieter. Later that night, I found myself remembering another Christmas. 6 years ago. Big dinner, turkey, ham, collard greens, sweet tea, so strong it'd make your teeth buzz. I'd carved the turkey, made Amara's favorite mac and cheese from scratch. Back then, she was small enough to sit in my lap between bites. That night, Kenitra asked me to move from my spot at the head of the table, said her folks needed to sit together for a family picture. She handed me a folding chair and pointed toward the corner. I didn't argue, just smiled, nodded, did what was asked. Raiden said nothing. I smiled through it, told myself the chair didn't matter. But looking back now, it mattered. I never really had a seat at that table, not one they honored, just one they gave when convenient. And that realization did something to me, something firm. I stood from my chair now in the quiet and walked to the bookshelf, pulled down a picture frame with a photo from that same Christmas, Darius, Kenitra, Amara, all smiling like nothing was broken. I turned it over. On the back, in my handwriting from years ago, I'd written, "You all gathered here. I paid for those walls." I slipped the frame into my coat pocket, walked to the window. Across the street, their house glowed, lights still on, shadows of people moving around, laughter rising through the cold air. "You can try to erase me," I whispered, "but you can't erase my work." I pulled the curtain closed, turned off the lamp, sat in the dark once more, this time, not defeated, but planning. Tonight, I decided, if they won't call me family, I'll remind them who built the home. I sat at the kitchen table long after dusk settled in, the only light coming from that one bare bulb overhead. I took a breath and placed a sheet of stationery before me. Out came the pen. I dipped it into memory and resolve. I started with, "To Darius and Kenitra." Then I slipped in the mortgage wire transfer, the exact numbers, dates, banks. Beneath it, I wrote, "You forgot who paid for your beginnings." My hand shook just a little, but not from fear. I folded the letter carefully, slid it into a plain envelope unmarked, and laid it near the front door. No return address, no flourish, just truth waiting to find its place. Later that evening, Amara's message arrived. "Grandpa, are you coming to Dad's cookout Saturday?" I read it twice. I was not invited. That wasn't accidental anymore. It was pattern. I loaded my car quietly, not to embarrass, but to reclaim a sliver of dignity. I drove over, down familiar roads, under streetlights, but I stayed back until I was sure people were gathered. Then I walked through the side gate without knocking. Their music floated. Laughter, clinking glasses, voices raised in merriment. From behind a hedge I heard Kenitra talking. "He still thinks he's the man of the family," she said to someone. Darius replied too. "Let him write his letters and preach. Keeps him busy." I froze. Their voices were clear, confident. They knew I was out there. They didn't care. My heart pounded. My breath caught. But I stood there. I heard enough. I left before the laughter could chase me. Back home, I picked up the phone. Calm. Clear. I spoke to Darius. "You forgot the man who paid for the roof you're laughing under." He stammered. I didn't let him off. I traced every date, every bank transfer, every handshake. I laid the blueprint of what I'd done. I said, "I warned you once, disrespect me again, and you'll feel consequences." Then I hung up. No apology, no room for negotiation. I walked slowly to the mailbox, slid the letter inside. Clean gesture, no fanfare. Then I found that old family photo on the wall. Darius, Kenitra, Amara, all smiling like nothing was wrong. I replaced it with a handwritten quote on paper. "You are not owed access to people you mistreat." I didn't break down. I didn't shout. I just locked the door, literally and figuratively. I sat in the dark, knowing the volume of silence would speak more than any shout. The house was still but not peaceful. There was a difference. I woke up before the sun cracked through the blinds, breath shallow, chest tight. That kind of tight that don't come from age. It comes from something festering. I sat at the edge of the bed, rubbed my temples, and whispered to nobody, "Enough." I walked barefoot to the office nook, pulled out the drawer that stuck a little on the left side. Out came my folder of bank records, mortgage slips, every transfer I ever made for Darius and Kenitra. I traced the line of numbers like reading my own handwriting for the first time. $97,000, wired in full. No questions asked back then, no hesitation. Now they couldn't even tag me in a video. I opened the bank app, typed in my password like I'd done every month without fail, and I hit cancel. Not pause, not delay, cancel. I left a message for the bank, effective immediately. "Please stop all withdrawals related to mortgage assistance." That was the last thread I held, and now I let it go. Later that morning, coffee untouched on the table, I opened up the community center's page. They'd posted the tribute video, Founders of the Home. I clicked play. The music swelled, photos flipped past, smiles, ribbon cuttings, speeches. But when my turn came, the screen skipped. My face blurred. Name gone. Comments flew in fast. Didn't he retire? Wasn't he there at the start? Who's that guy they cut out? I took a screenshot, sat back. That kind of anger where you don't feel hot, you feel sharp. It wasn't about ego, it was about truth. You erase a man's name, you erase the fight that name carried. I got in the truck and drove down to the center, walked in calm as ever. The manager, some kid no older than Raiden, stood behind the front desk. He smiled too wide. I said, "Let me ask you plain. Why was my name removed?" His smile dropped. "We thought maybe it wasn't needed anymore. We were told keeping it simple was best." I pulled out my phone, showed him the screenshot. Simple for who? You don't get to rewrite what you didn't build. He didn't say much after that. Eyes down, I didn't need to raise my voice. The truth had already done it for me. On the drive back home, I found myself remembering a sermon from years back. I'd stood in church when a guest speaker said our black legacy was a shadow, not the light. I stood up right then, told the whole room, God don't deal in shadows, he builds monuments out of those who refuse to be quiet. I felt that same fire now. I wasn't just canceling payments, I was canceling silence. When I walked into my house, I went straight to the living room, took the screenshot printout and placed it beside a framed card from a Christmas long gone. Back when Amara still colored inside the lines and wrote, "Love you, Grandpa," without prompting. My phone buzzed on the counter. No name, just unknown caller. I let it ring out. If they couldn't dial with respect, they didn't deserve an answer. I walked over to the front window, looked across the street. Their house was lit up again. Laughter spilling through the cracks like warm air you're not welcome to share. But I didn't flinch. I stood still. I let the silence speak for me. Because this time, I wasn't asking for a seat. I was taking back the whole table. The afternoon light slid across the hardwood floor, but the phone on the table stayed silent. No missed calls. No messages. Nothing from Darius. Nothing from Kenitra. I sat still in my armchair, legs crossed, the envelope in my hand, not shaking, just holding it like a weight I'd carried for too long. Inside, mortgage receipts, full breakdown, and a typed letter. I hadn't raised my voice. I didn't need to. The numbers told the story better than any argument ever could. I laid the sealed envelope on the mantel, right beneath the clock that hadn't ticked right since last winter. A quiet warning. My silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. The sky had dimmed when I glanced at my tablet. A new live stream was trending. Darius and Kenitra were throwing another one of their family gatherings. I tapped it open, not expecting anything, just habit at this point. Same music, same laughter, same curated version of joy. Except this time people noticed. The chat began moving fast. "Where's your father? Did Grandpa skip again?" I almost closed it. Then Raiden stepped into frame. He didn't look planned. Shirt slightly wrinkled, face unreadable. But he looked straight into the camera and said, clear as day, "My father helped build everything you're seeing. Don't erase him." You could feel the air leave the room through the screen. Kenitra's smile cracked. Her hand moved like she was reaching for him off camera, but he didn't flinch. "He gave without conditions," Raiden added. "That deserves more than silence." The comments went wild. Some typed clapping hands. Others said, "Finally." A few didn't know how to react. But I knew what that moment cost him. He stood on a line most don't dare cross in their own family. I turned off the live stream, closed my eyes for a beat. Then I stood. I placed the legal notice into a courier envelope, addressed to Darius. I walked out, handed it directly to the delivery driver waiting at the curb. No hesitation, no words. Once he drove off, I stood in the driveway, watching until the red taillights disappeared around the corner. I whispered to myself, let the truth land where lies tried to settle. Back inside their house, I imagined the fallout. I didn't need to see it to know. Raiden's words weren't loud, but they cracked the foundation. In that living room, Kenitra likely tried to pivot. She always did. That was a mistake, Raiden, I could almost hear her say. You don't understand, he interrupted. I knew his tone, sharp but steady. I understand perfectly. I watched that man pay for our roof and our silence. I'm done pretending he doesn't matter. The room would have stiffened. Maybe someone reached for their phone. Maybe someone left. That's usually how truth works. It don't blow through like a hurricane. It leaks in through the cracks you've tried to patch with lies. Back in my own home, I sat again, replayed the clip, watched Raiden's face. That was my son. Maybe the one part of me that still remembered what we stand for. The envelope on the mantel hadn't moved, but it felt heavier. Or maybe I just stood taller now. I spoke to the quiet. This isn't a plea. It's not a demand. I'm stating what's due. I opened the window. Evening air touched my skin. Clean, cool, honest. In that moment, I didn't need to yell. Didn't need to show up or knock down doors. The law would speak tomorrow. Tonight, I let the silence hold court. The text came in while I was setting the kettle on the stove. Just a short sentence from an old neighbor who worked at the courthouse. Seraphine's at a panic consult with her lawyer. Something about foreclosure. I didn't need details. I already knew the reason. I canceled those payments myself. She must have gotten the notice that morning. The first one from the bank, gentle but legal, stating that the mortgage support had been halted and a lien might follow if she didn't assume full payment. I could picture it. Her sitting across from her attorney, back stiff, face painted in worry but trying to fake confidence. She had no right to do this, she probably started to say, then corrected herself. He had no right. But her voice cracked. That's the thing about pretending too long, and when the truth catches up, it doesn't knock politely, it kicks in the door. That house she built her image around, the holiday parties, the live streams, the curated family smiles, all of it sat on a foundation she never acknowledged out loud. Until now, they never thought the ground would shift. They thought I'd keep covering their silence with my money. But I stopped, and now the tremors were showing. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was from a community board admin. No message, just a shared link. I opened it. There it was, a photo from years back. Me at the annual block BBQ, holding Amara in one arm and balancing a plate of ribs in the other. We were both laughing, her head on my shoulder. Someone had captioned it. The man they ghosted built them the house. And it spread like wildfire. I saw the tags, the reposts, Black family forums, neighborhood history pages, old church friends, all sharing it. The comment section wasn't nice. It was real. This man deserves better. I remember him building that deck with his bare hands. Didn't he pay for the whole house? Wait, where's his name now? Kenitra must have seen it the same time I did. I imagined her staring at her screen, color draining from her face. She'd worked so hard to scrub me out, but now the internet was putting me back in. And Darius? I bet he grabbed his phone like he could erase the post with a swipe. But some things don't delete. The day was turning gold with sunset when Jevon reached out. Secure message. I've had the proof, he wrote. I always did. I didn't want to be in the middle, but I can't stay silent no more. He sent over a folder. Inside were scanned documents, the original deed, my name printed in bold, dated before the move-in, not Darius. Me, attached, was also an old voicemail. Darius, young voice, humble tone. Dad, I just wanted to thank you again. We couldn't have done this without you. I'll never forget it. I sat down, played it twice. Third time I hit download. I posted the documents and the old photo on my own account. Just a short caption. Truth was on my name first. Within minutes, it was spreading again. My inbox filled with messages. Pastors, community organizers, former co-workers, some shocked, some ashamed. A few simply said, "We knew." Over at Darius's house, the live stream was quiet. No more upbeat music, just stiff smiles. Kenitra read from her phone, hands clenched. "Why is this happening now?" she asked. Darius didn't answer, not even to her. He looked away. That silence, the one he used to punish me with, had finally turned on him. I stepped outside around dusk. Didn't need to knock. Didn't even need to go inside. Just stood on their porch, set my phone up, went live. No script, just my voice. I built the foundation they now call their legacy, but I am not legacy's ghost. A few neighbors gathered. Someone whispered, "Is that Mal?" I kept going. They told the story without me, but now the truth has a mic. I held up the deed, then the photo. They can challenge paperwork, they can spin a narrative, but they cannot erase who paid the price. I turned, walked back down the driveway, didn't wait for a response, didn't need one. Behind me the lights stayed on, but the house felt dimmer. This wasn't revenge, it was reckoning. The light crept in slow that morning. No rush, no noise. Just the steady stretch of sun spilling across my kitchen floor, cutting through the silence like a new start. I stood by the counter, brewing coffee the way I've always done it. Black, hot, no sugar. Didn't feel like a celebration. Didn't feel like a win either. Just felt like truth had finally come up for air. I sat at the table, the manila folder in front of me, its edges curled a bit from where I'd gripped it too tight last night. Across from me, still pinned to the fridge, was a photo of Darius. A younger version, eyes full of fire, not yet consumed by pride. I didn't take it down. I whispered steady, "Forgiveness ain't weakness. It's choosing peace over punishment." Then I opened the folder and saw her name again. Amara Bentley. I'd written it in my own hand. Top of the trust papers. Later that morning, I drove out to the bank. Small branch, quiet lobby, same woman behind the counter who'd helped me open my first joint account decades ago. She smiled when she saw me. "Mr. Bentley," she said, "got everything with you?" I nodded and handed her the documents. We went over the trust together. The house, the one they tried to turn into a trophy, would go to Amara. But not just yet. Conditions were set. She'd have access at 25, had to stay in school, had to maintain a clean record. I left a letter sealed with the paperwork, addressed just to her. It said, "This house ain't a chain, it's a roof, for shelter, not status. Don't let it become a prison. Build your life, not someone else's legacy." I didn't tell Darius, didn't tell Kenitra. They had already walked themselves out of the story. I wasn't calling them back in. I walked out the bank and felt clear, not light, not heavy, just grounded. Around noon, I heard his knock. Darius, no cameras, no staged smiles. Just him on my porch, hat in hand, like a boy who'd lost something he didn't know how to ask back for. "Dad, you really did that?" I didn't move from the doorway, just nodded. I did what fathers do, protected what mattered, even if I had to do it alone. He looked like he wanted to say sorry, but the words didn't come out. Just silence. I didn't help him. "You grown now," I said. "Grow with it." He stood there for a beat, then nodded once and left. That was it. And that was enough. A few days later, I got a letter from Kenitra. Typed, cold, no apology, just blame turned sideways. "I thought you were controlling him," she wrote. "Turns out he's just weak." I folded the letter once, filed it under lessons, and went about my day. Didn't cuss, didn't cry. Some endings don't need fireworks. They just need to end. When I stepped outside, old Miss Carter from 2 houses down waved from her porch. Then Mr. Terrence honked as he drove by, gave me that nod. They didn't need to say it out loud. They always knew. That weekend, I walked down to my usual cafe, the one with the sticky menus and chipped counters, the one where folks knew my name without needing a tag. Ordered grits and sausage like always. The barista grinned. Extra crispy, just how you like it. One fella near the window leaned over. You Bentley? The man with the house story? I nodded, didn't say much else, sat at my usual booth, sipped my coffee, watched cars go by, no speeches, no judgment, just regular life. Let 'em write their stories, I said under my breath. I'm living mine. Waitress came by with a smile and slid over a slice of warm apple pie. On the house, she winked. You earned it. I chuckled. Ain't that something?